Amy Mae Robinson is our Mastery Circle, one of our core members. She has graciously stepped in at the very last minute because our speaker who was scheduled today actually had a fall hiking and is injured, was in the hospital. So thank you, Amy, for stepping in. And as I understand it, Amy is going to be sharing her poetry and challenges that came from, and then inviting others to share perhaps their personal experiences. So I'm very happy to have Amy here and speaking to us, and thank you so much for being so flexible and gracious for stepping in.
Thank you, Amy.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And I wanted to go back to the very beginning of the year when we all chose our word of what we were going to start the year out with. And my word was fulfillment. And fulfillment meaning to not start new projects until I had actually fulfilled some of the projects that I had already had in place. So when I thought about speaking about synchronicity, synchronicity took me to something else, and I'm going to go someplace else as opposed to synchronicity. And I'm going to go back to 2 years ago. I'm going to go back to the beginning of the pandemic. Because at the beginning of this meeting, when someone said that their loved one is in the, I think it was Mary Olson saying that their loved one is in the trauma. We all are very lucky to have our brains and to have our beings be where they are in times of trauma. And COVID for the past 2 years, we all need to realize that we have been through collectively a state of trauma. So I'd like to go back to March 26th, 2020. Who would have imagined the whole world would be stopping to slow down? What kind of luggage fee would that be? Fighting back the fear that has always been inside of me. I think I hear the wolf crying at a new moon. Isolation, solitude, pump up the cue for a collective humanity. To look up to clean blue skies, waters running clear, birds frolicking in the air, smog disappears. Life fighting to keep up a pace that was man-made, human maids, human brokers, human touch, a hug, a memory. The extroverts now introverts, and most prisoners thought they were free. Is this really happening to me, to us, to you? Walls, oceans, and last call are all rethunk. Hibernation at the start of spring. Is this a new novel thing? The clock ticks on while the apps of Tick and Talk hold virtual everything. The laughter raw and generations connected. Silent retreats are going on hiatus, while living room ashrams are being born from within. Who would have dreamt our ancestors knew so much as they walked their walk, knew when to plant, when to sleep, rest, and knew not about their 23andMe. Yet they are signaling us from way back then. The echoes just reached the time canyon continuum. They say, let the hurts of your heart be not for naught. Pick up the pieces slowly and be humbled by the simple delights of holding a hand, kissing a cheek, wiping away a tear, smelling the morning air. See the iris of your loved one's eyes, keeping it real and leaning into your grief. Let it hollow you out where the new roots can take hold. Your brokenness needed repair. Break free from the pattern and vow to the earth below your feet. Witness to the mirrored one in front of you to learn to live again and embrace the world as one again. Repack your luggage for a new way of being. Fly free, speak up, plant those trees, lose that smog, dance till the wee small hours of the morning, make art. Watch art, learn to appreciate the things you don't understand. Learn to speak a new language of possibility. Face the dread in your head. Curve your mouth to kindness. Recall the distance it takes to win the race. The pandemic goes on. My friend Mary, that's 102, she tells she's passed, and I get her hats. So when the pandemic hits, I place this hat on my head to channel her energy, to say, Mary, you made it through the 1917 pandemic. Show me the way. Show me how I can bring consciousness and hope and reverence to this new way of being. All the while being isolated away from my ailing parents in Utah. All the while promising I will learn German, I will exercise, I will clean my garage, I will learn to sew again from 7th grade, I will make art, I will garden, I will, until I stop. And I recall the things I truly want to do, and that is be with the ones I love. And sometimes we can't be with the ones we love. February 1st, 2021. To not be with you as you go. When last we gazed upon each other's eyes, our words were few. Because we had said all that was ours to say, the miles and sighs along with our thoughts kept us mapped out and guided, as if by design from one on high. Fortune smiled upon us once more, to hold our flame of mutual affirmation. The rain, fog, and cloud-filled skies knew what would soon be our cloaked back fears, fears that surfaced when the well went dry, when hope was dashed, tombstones always pre-written, when first we arrived. Ancestors watched and prayed we could pull our weight, knowing they would be called upon with flames, courage, and something called Zoom would be the spell that would carry us through the air. Full moons, snow bells, bells of Ireland, and friends remembered for the gifts of the past, their ink written upon our hearts. Then came the midway point between winter and spring. When will the robin sing? The garden sits still, the well running beneath the chill. Siblings toiled and planted in the fall with hope of things to come, the hatchet buried of woes of old. Then you had to go with a destiny pre-charted, even though the waters were uncharted, the people the way it was always going to be, reading, painting iron fences while you were infirm to a living room. The railroad tracks, the marble racks, slicked back sideburns to be all alone, like pioneers of old, while the winds howl out loud to a full moonless night that yearns for the daybreak to see the flock on the mountain's ridge, to be alone with one's thoughts, will carry you through toil and strife, and smile of love knocking on doors to let you in. Fathers that vanished from poverty of pocket, and souls of fathers who were saved through bolts of lightning. Passing through their coil, 'tis hard to nurse those wounds around a foggy, wet campfire. All alone, to stoke the stove to keep things warm. Mothers who patch things up so you can carry on. Even mothers pass on. What is broken can be mended, saucers, dishes, hearts, all filled with glue and fibers latching together, chaining up the road to build a ladder where the path can come unfold. Where are you going? The map and terrain have all been attained, the harvest brought in the snow, high up to the mountain's peak. Where will you go? What tale will you tell? What strife will you unpick and smooth out? Will you keep striking out? Where will you go when the world tells you there is no time to mend your side of the fence? Will you fortress up the wall and keep the breath shallow? Will you look beyond and not within? Will you dare follow where your compass directs you to go? Will all around care if you forgot and forget? Will they simply carry on and mock where once you dreamed of going? Pay no heed, but gather your bandana and your fishing pole and support to nourish you on the dusty trail that begs you to travel and cut back its thorns. Its weeds have grown tall. It's a hidden path. Where are you going? Some may not join you on your travels, for they have set firm their foundation and they have cast their cement. But you, bendable like cattails, must follow the pathway and flow. Pack your bags and your soul and off you go. Bending, turning, learning, all lead back to the looking glass, either half full or running over and looking within. The walls are thin, the pain and isolation real. The wind still wants to carry you away. Your loved one's voice is calling, pulling out of hindsight. If you tally longer, the cement will set and keep you here. Swift like a breeze, choose wisely. When the bell tolls, you will know the road that calls for you. Where are you going? Upward and onward, like smoke from the fire, the embers igniting, the memories here, hold them so close. If where you are going is close at hand, then let me light the way for you. If it is further down the road, then let me be the wind at your back. For the fear you face at the sign of giving in, where you go will be where I am. I will never, ever leave you again. And then I want to play something really quickly. The pandemic had me also making sure that I had plenty of time to practice and sing. Okay.
We cannot hear anything, Amy.
You can't hear it?
No.
No.
Okay.
Tim, maybe you can help technically here.
Yeah, Amy, what you want to do is share sound when you go to share whatever you're sharing. There's a little box in the corner when you share screen. You can share
Okay.
sound.
Oh, okay, I'll do that. Are you guys, is it okay so far?
We can see it.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. I see, I got to move it over here. Okay, here we go.
We cannot hear anything, Amy.
You can't hear anything?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to skip that and I'll not meant to be. So why don't we then go? So questions on if anybody's pandemic memory when you first stepped into the pandemic, and what were your thoughts? I know myself, I kept my pan diary and I go back to it and I keep looking that it was going to be a week, another week, maybe just 2 days more. And it didn't seem like that at all. So anyone want to share their first thoughts back at the beginning of the pandemic?
I just want to say how beautiful that poetry is. Just beautiful. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Okay. Well, then I could carry on. I've got more. Lisa.
And Bill also.
Okay.
Thank you, Amy, for that beautiful poetry. I hope we have an opportunity to hear more and more and more and more. I too kept a journal the first time we got stuck at home. And I remember the first thing is, gods, what am I going to do with myself? And then it just was so, you talking about synchronicity, it really afforded me the opportunity to sit down and focus on what I love to do, which is to draw. And so I created this wonderful routine out of being forced to stay at home during the pandemic. And, 2.5 years later, I have amassed a nice collection of visual art, through no fault of my own. It was like happenstance. It was, the universe was saying, here's this opportunity to do something that you love to do, even like cleaning out closets that I never would do, or throwing away stuff that has been sitting staring at me for 20 years, and it was time to let it move on. So I actually look at the pandemic as a wonderful opportunity to grow, both with my love of art, but also spiritually too. It gave me an opportunity to have time to read, and do things that I normally wouldn't have done. So yeah, I look at it as a blessing. And I'm glad that the blessing is starting to, to loosen up a little bit so we can go back out in the world. But yeah, wonderful, wonderful words, Amy, this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. And who is next?
Bill.
Bill.
Yes, thank you for that lyrical rendition, Amy. Beautiful. My recollection, I think of something right before it hit the fan. And I was in Idlewild, up in the mountains at the Idlewild Film Festival, and it snowed actually. And there were all these colleagues around, people I was just meeting, and wonderful films. And it was just, it was like a magical time. And then boom, crash. As soon as I got back to LA, that's when things really hit. So, but it's just made it all the more, it made it very poignant, but also made me appreciate the wonder I had just come from. So it was a, light and dark kind of transition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ron.
Ron.
Couple of things, Amy. I was very touched by your first speaking of your loss and what you did to be the other sister to the mother and the daughter. That touched me to tears, and I want to thank you for that. Second thing is, if you can send me a copy of what you've been reading, I'd greatly appreciate it. And thirdly, during the pandemic, I reached out to over 50 people, or they reached to me for help and understanding and what we were going through together and what we learned together and what we suffered together and what we came out the other end together. And it's still happening. And those relationships with more than 50 people throughout the country has been a real gift to me, and I've grown through it, and I've kept a lot of notes, and I'm learning from those notes. So thank you very much for today. I really appreciate it.
All right. Sam.
Yeah, Amy, I want to thank you for that amazing experience of listening to what was coming out of you. During the first 5 months of the pandemic, I was finishing up a book I was writing, and I think it was published on Amazon on May 15th. So I kept busy, but I kind of went into a mode of, okay, I've just got to hang in there and survive this. So I trudged along through the rest of the pandemic and kind of in survival mode, and in the process didn't realize it. But as I was coming out of the pandemic, as we were coming out of it, I began to realize I'd really gotten quite depressed.
Mm.
I wish I'd found some packed, there was an image there of packing something new in my bag during the pandemic that was new and enriching more than just trudging along. So thank you for sharing your experience of that.
Thank you. Linda.
Yeah, I remember when the pandemic hit and it was like, wow, oh no, oh wow, oh no, oh no. I mean, it was just like whoosh. And I know that it was up to me to figure out, what am I going to do to survive this? And it was very internal. But I made a decision to meditate and exercise daily. Must do this, must do this.
Mm.
Yeah, it trained me. Shit, I do it every day.
Yay, good.
Maybe it saved me too.
So I would read another one if you'd, because my dad died, and I wasn't able to be there with him. And the amount of my coping mechanism broke. My coping mechanism broke on New Year's Eve when I was betrayed by something. And so when this started today, when someone said they ended up in the mental, because of a mental breakdown, I believe my whole soul was prepared for that moment. And this will be one. March 6th, 2021. Anytime I start to cry and think of the words I didn't speak, I clear my thoughts and I anchor my heart to new shores I will land upon. Truth is, the tears are really stings of days, months, and years of being who I had to be to fit into their imaginary world. Anytime I wonder why, I hold my heart, and I know I was doing the best I could. The words I wanted to yell, the words I wanted to tell to anyone else other than the people in my head. Those words were held hostage by a band of boys and a little girl, me, hoping to be saved from torturous years. I wanted to matter. I wanted to be free, free from the knots, but those knots were tied too tightly. My tongue knew not how to undo the twists and turns it was made into. That little girl knew one day she would make it out. One day she wouldn't have to smile and say she was fine. When inside the alarms were going off, I know if I move far away, I won't have to contend with the memories that haunt as I turn down a street and look at houses with ghosts and pain. When I get big, I'll be a star that streaks across the sky. If only God will pull me out of this spell, they will all look at me and wonder how I made it this far from torture and dread. I tried to get away by playing dead. It didn't work playing dead. I was determined like a bird. I thought myself free, and one day I would be who it was I was really meant to be. Those years weren't the kind of sunny years a child should stomach and keep down, but my moldable mind learned I could if I wanted to fit in, if I wanted to survive, I needed to create the person I wanted and they wanted me to be. So Jesus was my sunbeam. Heavenly Father held my hand. My voices in my head fought hard up against their lies, plotting out a way when the age was mine. the violence, the fright, the weight of secrets held inside. I learned to be a champion of lies. Smile, agree, fight underneath, look towards the coming day when I could break free. Turning and running towards me, be the character they expect me to be, acting as if it turned into a gift. Now I ask why as I begin to cry, where is it rising from? I hear a hero voice from inside of me. Trust your inner self, your surviving timing. Change broke your hardest fought self. Don't let it break the love, blind your sight, or fill you with hate. It's time to let it all go. Stories are told, reframe that and greet the dawn. With celebration of days and moments ahead, lives lived are still remembered with bliss. Alchemy of the past has happened at last. Thank you. So the pandemic goes on, and here we are today. And I have others, but I would like to close with something that is not mine, and then we can open the floor. Something that I always go to that fills me with hope. Like the Mastery Circle gives hope. Desiderata, go placidly amid the noise and the haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible, without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others, even to the dull and the ignorant. They too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. They are vexations to the spirit. If you compare yourself with others, you may become vain and bitter, for always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself. Enjoy your achievements as well as your plans. Keep interested in your own career, however humble. It is a real possession in the changing fortunes of time. Exercise caution in your business affairs, for the world is full of trickery. But let not this blind you to what virtue there is. Many persons strive for high ideals, and everywhere life is full of heroism. Be yourself, especially not feign affection, neither be cynical about love, for in the face of all aridity and in disenchantment, it is perennial as the grass. Take kindly the counsel of the years, gracefully surrendering the things of youth. Nurture spirit of strength to shield you in sudden misfortune. But do not distress yourself with dark imagings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Beyond a wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here, and whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive him or her to be, and whatever your labors and aspirations in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace in your soul. With all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful. Strive to be happy. Max Ehrmann, 1948. This was in Mary's bathroom on a great big poster. And I took that poster, and it had been in her house for over 50 years, and it crumbled when I took it out of her house like it was some magical, mystical, it had done its duty. And so I love poetry. I love this group, and thank you for letting me share from my heart.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you so much. Sam, did you have a
Yeah,
comment?
Amy, do you have a link to that last piece you read?
Yeah.
Okay, could you send that out? That's 50, it contains 50 sermons I need to hear over and over again. I connected so much with so many parts of that. Thank you.
Oh.
Please,
If you
will.
Google it, there are all kinds of beautiful that you can print out, designed, lovely documents you can print.
Oh yeah, there's lovely people that I'll send one of my favorite voices that does a voiceover on YouTube for it. His voice is like, it's like rich silk that just surrounds you. It's truly lovely. So yes, I will.
Almost as good as Jonathan's, I'm sure.
Oh, very, very similar. I'd love to hear Jonathan read Desiderata, sure.
Oh yeah, yeah. Any other comments?
Speaker.
Ron? Gotta unmute. There, you did it. Oh, no, now you're muted again. Okay, while he's working on that, anybody else here? Pamela, please.
Amy, it's just a huge gift for the spirit and the soul, and the timing is perfection. And I think you have a halo on your head or something. It's very beautiful. So thank you so much for everything.
Thank you.
Ron, you had it for a second and then you muted yourself again. So you were almost there. Just a few seconds ago. You unmuted and then you remuted. So somebody else. Thomas, please. Thomas.
And Thomas, you're muted.
It's contagious.
I was really touched by the fact that Amy took the trauma of the pandemic and went into her soul to look at what lessons it taught her, and it brought her back to her poetic soul. And so I really am grateful for that. And I think it's an invitation for all of us to go into the soul work, be it art or however we express that. So I'm very grateful to the speaker. And I had the worst time getting on, and if it wasn't for the help of a dear friend, it took me 20 minutes to get on to Mastery Circle today. Wow. So I arrived late, but very grateful. Amen.
Thank you so much. Mim.
Ron, I just want to say,
Oh,
Ron,
Ron's back.
unmuted.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Ron. Ron?
Yes. Yes. One thing I had to say about Amy that was paramount to her speaking. I think she was one of the most marvelous guests in years because she addressed a part of every one of us, but her voice was so beautiful, so passionate. And I felt the loss of her family, and knowing her history and where she was born and raised, I understand that world. But she was not prejudiced. She was just talking from her heart to our heart. And she reached me very deeply. And I'll be talking to you, Amy. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Mim.
Yes, Amy, that was just so beautiful. And the reason I was so touched when you started to read the Desiderata, I didn't know where I knew it from, but I could feel myself saying the words with you. And I finally remembered it was in the 70s. Oh my goodness. I don't know what I was doing, but I took that poem
and somehow attached it or laminated to a plaque, and I hung it in my first apartment.
Mhm.
It was the beginning of my new life as a single person, and that was the most meaningful piece of art. I'll call it art in my life, and you brought it all back just now. So thank you so much for that. It was lovely.
Thank you.
There's Afton.
Yes, I have it framed twice. One hung in my office, which I gave up during the pandemic, and the other is still in my art studio. I've carried it since the 60s through my journey into various phases. That it's been an anchoring piece. And at one time I had it memorized. I only have the first few lines now, but thank you for bringing it today.
Sure.
Bonnie
Bonnie.
Walker.
So, Amy, I have appreciated this so much this morning. And the last thing that you read that was, that you wrote, I resonated with that so deeply. It just washed over me as though it's something that actually came out of me, came out of you, and I felt that connection. And so I would love to have a copy of that.
Sure.
So
I'm honored. Thank you. Sure.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
So Amy, I just want to say again, as a fellow poet, how special and unique your writing is. It's just beautiful. And I was thinking, what poet is it like? It's like no one else. It's you. It's you. And it's so deep and inspiring.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Amy, this is Eugenia. Can you hear me? I love hearing it's performance art. Your writing is from your heart, deep, and we're with you. And your countenance just supports that. So thank you for beautiful performance, sharing deeply. That was amazing.